Welcome to a new episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, it is my pleasure to welcome, in her own words, a multi potentialite who has chosen to let two of her talents be experienced by the world. Nidhi Kalra, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank
And
you.
I love the introduction.
Nidhi is got a recruitment firm called ITAAP, and we're going to talk about that. It stands for It's All About People. She is, very fit, and she works. She's got another passion in a bowl brand, which we're going to talk about. So, Nidhi, tell me first about what would you say are three key milestones in your life or career?
So, Ashutosh, I started out very early. And as a matter of fact, I was thrown into the deep side of water very, very early, which means I started managing teams when I was all of 20.
Okay.
So I think when you start to manage or inspire a small team, you feel responsible for people. And I think with that responsibility comes a lot of learning. There are challenges, but of course, I think the learning that came with inspiring a team to me would be one of my key learnings. It makes you a hustler, makes your survival instincts are exceptional, your people skills become better. So I think makes you all in all a very good leader. You understand whether you have it in you to lead or you don't. And I think I understood that very early in my career. Yeah. And also the fact that, I worked in various functions. And that's something that I appreciate a lot about organizations like Levers and some of the larger organizations who have this concept of job rotation. I feel when you expose people to different facets, different functions, different roles, there is a sense of clarity that comes in what you want to do, how you want to achieve. And I was very lucky to, be exposed to very, very different functions in my life. So I started my career with consulting, public relations, marketing communication, moved on to market research, advertising, and now, of course, I'm in the business of executive search.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think being exposed to different fields really helped.
Terrific. So let's come to it's all about people. When I was growing up, and I'm much, much older than you, search firms used to be called headhunters.
Correct.
Now they've changed to search firms. So tell me, why have this nomenclature changed?
I'm not sure there is too much of a difference, by the way. The line is very, very thin between a headhunter and a search firm. And I think from a commercial standpoint, these are two different things. Otherwise, I don't think there's too much of a difference. A headhunter would headhunt anybody, any level. They would do an extensive mapping exercise and find people. A search firm today is a very focused firm which will identify your candidate pivots. Yeah, they will first understand what is it culturally that is required culturally, and then they will get down to snowballing, what we typically call networking, and find you the right person. I feel there is very thin line, but commercially, a search firm will charge you more, right? So it's a more commercially viable business. I think the effort in a search firm or a headhunting firm are pretty much the same. I think commercially, search firms don't make as much. Make much more than a headhunting firm. That's the only difference. And now the golf course and a lot of other sports fields make it so much easier for you to network, get to know people. Because I feel that as a search firm, it's very important to understand who you're hiring. It's not so much about what's on the CV. As a matter of fact, very often I tell people, listen, don't follow the CV. To candidates, often my advice is that don't keep your CV longer than a page. Yeah, let your CV be short, crisp, to the point. So yeah, in that sense, I'm not sure there's too much of a difference except for commercial.
So let's tell me, Nidhi, what really got you to start It's All About People? What was the motivation? I mean, you were doing well in the corporate world.
Right. So, Ashutosh, I had spent about 9 years in the corporate world. And when I looked at my boss, I always felt that what is it that he's doing differently than I am, right? I'm contributing as much. Of course, I'd learned a whole lot by then, right? But I always felt that the difference was very little in what he was doing and what I was doing. And that got me to thinking that, listen, if I want to make a difference, there has to be this leap that I'll have to take. Whether that leap is in the same industry, same function, that's not important. Mm-hmm. Also, very early, I knew my ikigai. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So as they say, my ikigai was to give back to the world in very small ways. Some people can make larger differences. Mm-hmm. I think that identifying my ikigai helped me transition from a very different field, which is market research, because it was market research also is very, very interesting. You're learning about categories, brands, how's Marico functioning, why is a manjal not doing well in the South, understanding landscapes. Learning that you have from interacting with people is far superior than anything else. And I think that got me to take up, this challenging role. And I had somebody who said, listen, you have great people skill, so why don't you come and partner with me? So it really started as a partnership. Mm-hmm. And over a period of time, I realized that I really want to scale up. And that's when I started It's All About People. Yeah. And really is about people for me.
Fair enough. So Nidhi, tell me, from the perspective of a young individual in the corporate world, when do I become relevant for a search firm? And I'm constantly waiting for that call saying, hey, there is an interesting job. Would you like to consider? What are your thoughts?
So, Ashutosh, when I started It's All About People, I'm very clear that as an organization, we will focus on snowballing and networking. And we don't want to be on myriad platforms like Naukri or any of the other platform where most of the other firms are, because then you're not really bringing value to the table, right? So in our case, maybe the person who's expecting a call will only get a call much later, because we are only a networking-driven organization. But having said that, I think mid-level, 10 years onwards, you become relevant to any search firm, and especially if you have a niche profile. See, a lot of organizations right now, engage with a search firm for niche roles, because that's where you realize that your HR cannot contribute as well as a search firm. So let's say data science is one of the areas we are currently focusing on. We run a lot of LinkedIn groups. We pretty much found a niche. So if you are somebody with 2 years experience also in data science, you're relevant to a search firm. But for a more generic function, maybe it'll be 10 years plus. Yeah, so mid to senior level there. But otherwise, if you're a niche, you've got a strong profile, you can get a call tomorrow.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. So Nidhi, when you're looking for a senior person from, to take to one of your clients, once you've got the mandate from your client, what is the process that you follow?
Okay. A lot like other search firms and maybe slightly different. One of the first things that we start with is the candidate pivot. Mm-hmm. Okay. Which why I'm calling it pivot is because you're trying to understand the company's culture and you're trying to fit the person with the company's culture, and you're trying to understand what is it that the company needs. See, what may be good for one organization is not necessarily going to be good for another organization. A global MNC would typically be looking for a pedigreed person. An Indian MNC may be looking for somebody just who's instinctively very good, right? A retail giant, sometime when we're working on very large mandates for them and some senior mandates for them, would often come to us saying that, listen, I'm looking for a leader for this role. So then for those organizations, can that person manage the customer experience? Can he be influential in changing the retail ecosystem? Is he somebody who is up for digital transformation? Those are areas we're looking for. But that may not be true for a lot of other organizations, right? I mean, when Steve Jobs came, or when, Meg Whitman came, the companies were in very different life stages, right? They needed different people. Like when Meg Whitman came, HP was going through a rotating CEO thing. There were so many CEOs who came in and left, right? But she came and changed everything. I think it's very essential to understand cultural fits. It's very essential to understand company pivots, candidate pivots. And it's also very important to identify the entrepreneurial skill in that person. I feel at senior level, if you don't have that, if you're not somebody who can innovate in the way you provide solutions, then you cannot lead anything. I think that is going to be a common thread amongst all candidates.
Yeah. Interesting. And you just mentioned that I was going to ask you this question: what is the difference between recruiting for a multinational and an Indian-owned company? And a word you used was pedigree. Help me understand, how are these different?
Typically for a large MNC, let's say we work with Levers or we work with GSK, some of the larger ones, they are very strict JDs, very strict regimented JDs, and you cannot move away from them. If they've told you, I need somebody from a 2000 batch or a 1993 batch, they will not budge from them.
Right.
Okay, there are levels, and within those levels, there are grades, and hence they don't have the freedom.
Okay.
Yeah, that's number one. That's one of the biggest difference between a global company hiring and an Indian company hiring. Right? An Indian company will say, oh, you know what, just get me a good guy. Yeah. And like I said, there's a lot of gut and instincts that come into play in an Indian CEO hiring versus global CEO hiring, where they say, listen, he should have either been to Harvard or a Stanford, because there is an alumni that comes with it. So it's not so much just about what have you studied, but can you use a network that you've created over the years, right? And that's again very relevant to a global company or a global CEO.
Right.
The third aspect is there are a lot of processes. Yeah. In a global organization, there are way too many processes. What are the best practices you've adopted over the years, learned? Can you bring them here? And that's where pedigree comes in. I think you work with larger organizations, you've got best practices in place. And that may not be true for Indian firms. They're okay to get a good guy who's a hustler, who can hit the ground running from day one. Of course, vision in both cases is important. And again, like I said, entrepreneurship is very important in both cases. But I think pedigree is definitely more relevant to global CEO. And also the fact that I feel that there are a lot of stakeholders we manage. And these stakeholders, at senior level, a lot of people say, you know what, I didn't like this person. Or, I don't know whether this role really requires technical skills. And I keep telling them, listen, you've done technical all your life. Now is the time to manage stakeholders. And as long as you're doing that fine, you'll get the job done. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a little bit of, they say, every CEO has got an open flank. As long as organizations identify these flanks, and I feel that's where we go wrong. Somebody's got an open flank or somebody's got some quirks or some flaws. We say, this person had this. Can we work around it? Maybe the CEO has an open flank. Maybe a CEO can come and contribute to that, right? As an ecosystem, can we, work around it and create a much stronger ecosystem? I mean, nobody can deny Steve Jobs got his own quirks, right? But he's managed to create something extraordinary. So to create something extraordinary, you have to ignore that.
True. So Nidhi, let's move to another section of our conversation, which is other enterprise that you're creating, which is Passion in a Bowl. Tell me about this venture.
Okay. So, I'm a person of various passions. Okay. I'm somebody who feels that one must have, to be able to remain sane, and especially in a recruitment business, you need to find an alternate passion. Yeah. And coincidentally for me, that passion also turned out to be commercially viable. And I also feel that if your passion is something that you want to make a venture out of, it better make commercial sense. And for me, luckily, it made a lot of sense. So Passion Bowl is a culinary experience where, I've been diabetic and I have thyroid since I was 25. And I've pretty much managed to manage both things with some lifestyle changes. And I feel all of us, and most of these are lifestyle diseases, I feel. And if we all manage to live a healthier life, make healthy living a way of life, we can conquer most of these things. And that's when I came up with Passion in a Bowl, which was actually just an experiment where I came up with a muesli made out of all indigenous products. So I went to Uttarakhand, I picked up something. It was an experiment which happened in my small kitchen. And coincidentally, I was at a GSK vendor meet where we also got awarded as one of the best recruiters in our area. And I was carrying this jar and I was munching away because I'm somebody who eats every 2 hours. And for some reason, somebody sitting next to me and asked me for the jar, and the jar got passed on. And I think it changed 20 hands before it reached the R&D head, who just had it and said, you know what? I've never eaten something like this. It's, flavors, everything. It has a burst of flavors. They all loved it, but that was it, right? For me, that it could have ended there.
Yeah.
But I got lucky, and an organization like GSK came back and said, listen, can you do 1,000 jars? And that was for one day. And within a month, I was making 45,000 jars of
Wow.
muesli. And I obviously wasn't equipped, right? When I started out, and an organization like GSK, which is Horlicks, is very quality conscious. You applied for FSI, a license, you had to make sure all quality checks were done. They would come every now and then. And I had to create literally a manufacturing setup, emptied out the whole house, created a full line. And yeah, that's actually how Passion of Bold started.
That's
Yeah.
quite amazing. Quite amazing. And you also say that fitness is a combination of eating right and exercising right.
Correct.
Talk to me a little bit about the exercising part.
Yeah. I think I firmly believe as you start, and I'm not saying aging, but I'm 40 plus, right? So when you start to hit that 40 or 30 mark, you have to be conscious of what goes into that body and how are you treating your body, right? If you don't feel fit, you don't feel good, you'll not be able to do anything. You won't be able to do good to the society.
Correct.
And I don't know, a lot of people say, exercise exhausts me. I feel there's an adrenaline rush. I feel that exercise actually makes you much more fresher. Yeah. And when you start your day with whether it's meditation or exercise, your days are bound to have much more energy than, anybody who's not exercising. And it has to be a way of life. In India, of course, the quality of air and a lot of other things are deterrents, but internationally, it's a way of life. And people walk miles. We've got cars. We don't even want to walk 1 mile. It's unfair. If we are going to do this to ourselves, imagine what the coming generation will be like.
I agree. And I'm completely on the same page. I'm diabetic, and for many years, and I work out 365 days a year every morning.
Wow.
So, I agree with completely.
You think better, right? You work out and you start thinking better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I have time for a few questions for you personally now. Nidhi, you've done so many different things. It's all about people is doing well, success with passion in a bowl. What does success mean to Nidhi?
I think, like I said, I understood my ikigai very early in my life. And for me, success would be to anybody I talk to, anybody I interact with, have I been able to make a difference? Yeah. For me, that's the idea of success and nothing else. Success is when you're able. So, when I started, I don't know if you know about ITAAP Collective. ITAAP Collective is something I started during the lockdown. When I started getting calls from people saying, I've been furloughed. Currently ITAAP Collective is managing about 1.5 lakh people who've lost their jobs. Yeah. And this is all pro bono.
Right.
So here are people who've lost their jobs. And as a recruiter, my heart went out to them.
Right.
Okay. Commercially, it's bad for everybody, right? Even for recruitment firms, nobody wants to give us work. Everybody's saying, can I do this on my own? Fair. As long as I'm making little money, it's fine. I need money for survival. But beyond that, when I got these calls from 1.5 lakh people, I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put everything that I have into this. So we started a mentorship program under that, where 100 mentors from across the industry came forward and they said, listen, we will take on 10 people each and we will help them with their job search because my network is limited. I can't start to believe that, listen, I can alone make a difference, right? And I think, so what I'm getting to is that I think sociopreneurship, where you're trying to be a catalyst to a social transformation, to me, that's success. The day you arrive at that point is when you've actually pretty much hit the jackpot.
Terrific. So I have time for one more question for you. And this question is that if you, Nidhi, were a role model to millions of children who closely followed you and your life choices, what is the one thing you would change in yourself?
Wow. Change in myself. I think I would have tried out a lot more when I was younger. I think I became responsible too early in my life. So, there is a belief that we have a certain brand image of ourselves. And I'm going to tell this to every youngsters that don't try and create a brand image for yourself, which you have to constantly live up to. Yeah. I think we're all sort of trying to create a brand image of super women, superhumans. And every day, I got married young. I started out as an entrepreneur very young. I think I created that image for myself. And every day I chased it. And to a point where I may have hit a blind spot, but I wasn't ready to accept it. I was always feeling responsible for people, for things. And this was clearly in my head. So I feel that don't create those images. Try out new things. I'm sure your final calling you will come across eventually. But don't be hard on yourself. I feel a lot of youngsters are very hard on themselves right now.
Well said. Nidhi, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you, and I wish you and ITAAP lots of success.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. It's been an absolute pleasure being on the show, and wish you all the very best with your upcoming episodes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the brand called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.